Hello, and thank you for watching this presentation. Today we are going to follow the money, and specifically we're going to look at people who make a lot of money, namely executives at publicly traded companies. Now, for a little bit of background here, let's take a look at this pretty typical headline when it comes to covering executive pay in the popular media. We see, CEOs are making millions of dollars while the world is falling apart. And it's safe to say that in general, executives tend to be highly paid. It's also safe to say that this is really not well understood by most people, the how and the why. And there's generally a pretty negative perception around the way that executives are compensated in the United States, certainly. Thankfully for us, the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, or the SEC, requires disclosure of executive pay data. And what that looks like in practice is, going to the SEC website and looking up a random company. Let's just take Apple as an example. We find their annual proxy statement in which they must disclose all their paid data. And as you can see here, it's going to be on page 35, executive compensation. And they're just going to, discuss in pretty good detail, all of the reasons and the rationales and the justifications and the structure of their incentive plans that they give to their top executives, their top 5 executives. And after a lot of text, we come to these tables, these data tables. This is required by the SEC. So this is the summary compensation table. It covers, 1, 2, 3 years of data for the top 5 officers, including their salary, their stock awards, their performance bonuses, and so on. There's other tables here too. There's the grants of plan-based awards, which tells you the range of potential payouts that someone might get. There's, the outstanding equity awards from years past. There's what vested in this year. There's all sorts of tables, including, hey, what happens upon termination of employment? Now, the problem is that this data is hard to access, right? So it took about maybe a minute for us to look into Apple's pay practices, but and the values here are mostly projected rather than earned because we don't know what the stock is going to be worth 4 years from now. We don't know if they're going to meet their goals 3 years from now. And it's really hard to compare this with other companies or create benchmarks. Like if I wanted to compare the hardware industry as a whole to Apple, well, I'm going to need to go to every single proxy and pull all the information myself manually. And so what we're proposing is a better way of understanding executive pay data kind of on demand. In other words, build a knowledge base, an executive compensation knowledge base for analyzing and democratizing executive pay data on demand. Now, this falls under 2 different work streams. The first is aggregating pay data in mass, kind of scraping pay data in order to understand the broader trends and the larger context of executive pay. The other work stream is to create a browser extension that will query individual company results. You input a ticker and you can see, in this case, Microsoft, what's been Microsoft's financial situation for the last 10 years and how have they paid their CEO? Hey, what happened in 2014 to Microsoft? It looks like that's when Satya Nadella joined the company and they gave him a big payout. And so in order to establish credibility using data, we source some data from secapi.io using an academic license. It's only the summary compensation table data that's available to us. We have 15 years of data. About 2 million data points are observed here. And we see clear patterns in distributions, which is remarkable because we're talking about thousands of companies and tens of thousands of executives, and this is not a coordinated activity, and yet these patterns just emerge. They just emerge from the practices of these various companies. And here are the unaltered descriptive statistics, just to look at, the mean, the standard deviation, the interquartile range. But the problem is that there are known errors in the data that we're currently using. For example, an $18 billion salary. Well, that's clearly wrong. That's a web crawler issue. And also our data only covers summary compensation table data. It doesn't cover those other awards. And so what we are looking to do in order to get this knowledge base off the ground, what we require is 1, an executive pay database, a robust database that has minimal errors and can be queried on demand very quickly. Two, we need scripts. We need to build web applications. We need to build data visualizations. We need to build analytical tools, and we need that to happen kind of in real time for any user to go to our website and find out what's going on just at the click of a button. We also need licenses if we're going to be using this data in public web applications. We need to make sure that we have the appropriate licenses to share this information. We're also going to need to understand a little bit about cloud hosting in order to host our domain, our database, our tools and applications. We'll also need some kind of knowledge-based software in order to organize all the content that we're discussing here. Maybe Wikipedia style or something similar. And then also education materials, blogs and videos and demonstrations, things to provide a greater context for why it is that executives are paid the way that they are. And so we've broken this down into 3 different phases. And phase 1 is already complete. That's the proof of concept stage. So we've put together an initial data set. You've already seen that. And we've done a little bit of aggregate data analysis. You've seen a little bit of that. We also have this financial query application, which looks something like this. You input a ticker. Let's stick with Apple for a second. I'm on the New York Times reading about Apple company. And I just want to know, hey, what is their company's financial situation look like over the last 10 years? Something I can look up really super duper quickly. And we've also established a GitHub repository for the knowledge-based materials. Then what's coming up next over the next say 3 to 6 months, phases 2 and 3, we need to upgrade our data, just get better data. We need to build better scripts for web app deployments, and we actually need to build this browser extension that we're talking about. And then as we move on to phase 3, scalability really is the order of the day. Being able to reach hundreds, possibly thousands of people. And we need the infrastructure that can handle that type of workload. And so here's how you can help. We are seeking partners to help further the technical, the analytical, and the spiritual goals of our executive compensation knowledge base. And that is to understand the structure and the role of pay incentives at public companies. We also want to increase transparency around what executives are making and the differences between the super millionaires and the not super millionaires. And we also want to provide pay data resources rather than rhetoric. There's so much anger and hostility when it comes to this subject, and we really just need to turn the temperature down on some of these discussions. And the best way to do that is to provide facts, reasons, and rationale. So for more information, you can visit the GitHub linked there. You can try the Streamlit demo, also linked there. Or you can contact me, the owner, Stephen Reagan. And I look forward to hearing from you. And thank you very much for watching this presentation. Here's some references.